At Mariel Cook Library. It's the 7th of August 2003, and I'm here interviewing Mr. Chester Dunn. Go ahead.
You got it. Now what do you want?
Just go ahead and just...
You want me to?
No, that'll work fine there.
Okay.
Just go ahead and tell us where you were born and...
Well, I was born right here in Warren County between Fort Hays and Clarksville. And back in 1922, my folks moved from there over to Lebanon before my next brother was born. He was born in 1924. And he was born on West Main Street in Lebanon. And I got a sister that was born number 5 Stillwell Place, and a younger brother that was also born in number 5 Stillwell Place. We lived there for quite some time. We lived in number 5, and then we moved next door to number 6, where we had first time we had a bathroom. Yeah. Prior to that, it would be the big round tub in the kitchen. But number 6 was, it was a nice place. The Stillwell Place was all owned by Stephen Stillwell and his wife Mandy. Now, Amanda, she lived quite some time after Stephen died. And my grandmother took care of her for one time. While I lived in the Stillwell Place, I saw the creek get up, so it covered the whole park one time. It had come clear up within the next to last step in the shelter house, which sits up high down there. Whether you're familiar with Lebanon Park or not.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was 2 different years that I went to citizen military training, which was sponsored by the American Legion. Now, I wasn't alone there. I had some other classmates that went out there with me. But that was one of the main reasons why I enlisted in the Marine Corps. I figured that was the best that the Army could do. I didn't want anything to do with them. I wanted to go into something that would give me a chance to survive. And as it was, I never got into any actual combat. I went through Parris Island and boot training, and from there we come back up to Camp Lejeune for the rifle range, and then we sent up to Cherry Point to be dispersed from there to where we were going to go. And I went to Jacksonville, Florida for 5 months of aviation metalsmith training. And that 5 months of aviation metalsmith training was practically wasted because I never worked in a metal shop after I got out of school. I got back to Cherry Point where they put me out on the line as a flight mechanic. And the tool room was in such bad shape that I finally got to take care of it and disperse tools to the guys working out on the flight line. And I started taking care of the mail for the service squadron. And when I got overseas, why, I ended up in the post office. So I was only service squadron man, and the rest of them were headquarters. And when it come time to be rotated, why, I was the first one rotated. Excuse me. The headquarters men weren't too pleased with that, but I managed to survive it. Yeah. And come back stateside, and got in there in June. July the 11th, why, I got married.
Huh.
Still have the same wife when she's in a rest home.
Okay.
Yeah. My oldest boy, he works in Armco. He spent 2 years in the Marine Corps and 16 months of that over in Nam. So he got an award that I didn't even want, Purple Heart.
Oh. So he spent 13 plus 3, because the regular rotation was 13 months at that point, right?
13 months.
In country. You spent an extra 3.
About 16 months overseas.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We left out of Hawaii. That's where we formed the outfit.
Mm-hmm.
My commanding officer was, they ended up with Colonel Smith. And he was one of the aces off of Guadalcanal. He had 19 planes to his credit before he had that they shipped him home. And I got to see Major Joe Foss, and he stopped in to see the colonel on the way back to the States. I got to see Charles Lindbergh. He came over and they went up and had a camera dogfight. And Lindbergh beat him. And we were reviewed by the president over there one time. Standing stood parade at Roosevelt.
Uh-huh.
I'm skipping back and forth there a little bit, aren't I?
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, can you explain who Joe Foss was?
What?
Who Joe Foss was?
Major Joe Foss, he was another Guadalcanal ace. I think he had 26 planes to his credit when he got back out.
Okay. And he was the leading Marine ace at that time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and let's see, didn't he end up being the top Marine ace when it was all said and done?
Well, I don't know about that. I never dug into that.
Okay.
That much.
But I mean, still a heavy hitter when it comes to meeting people.
Yeah, what now?
Still a pretty high,
Yeah.
important person to meet.
He was.
Yeah, along with Charles Lindbergh.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I got a picture of Joe Foss at home. He's sitting in the ready room smoking a cigar. But now I smoked cigars myself for 37 years. Finally gave it up in '85.
All right. So when you went overseas, which unit were you with?
I was with Marine Air Group 32,
Okay.
Service Squadron.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what you did there.
Yeah, our first night in on Luzon was about the closest I ever come to anything like combat. There were 2 Jap planes, bombers, come in at treetop level and missed our camp area by 200 yards.
Close.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah.
But I was up myself, the rest of them were still sleeping
Mm.
when air raid siren went off down the line. And the mosquitoes that got me up, I put my cot together so I could put my mosquito net on it when I heard the siren go off. Yeah, the next morning, when it happened that a woman friendly to the Japs had signaled them in with a prairie pistol into our camp area.
Okay.
And the Filipinos got to her before the MPs did. So she was hanging from her front porch when they got there.
Hmm. So, not a thing to do to cross the Filipinos in the Americans.
No.
Not at that time. Okay. So what did Marine Air Group 32 actually? What was its mission?
Well, we have dive bombers and fighter planes.
Okay.
And the Corsairs. And it was the early Corsairs were the ones with the three-bladed prop and long landing gear.
Mm-hmm.
And they could not land on carriers. But they shortened the landing gear and made a four-bladed prop out of it for it, and then it could do that.
Okay. And what type of dive bombers did you have?
SBDs.
No. Okay. So you had the old SBD.
Yeah.
So, what did you work on the aircraft or?
No, I didn't work on an aircraft. Like I say, when I got over there, I went into the post office,
Mm-hmm.
and I hadn't had enough work to do there.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew all the men in the service squadron, and which was fortunate for one boy. We had a load of mail come in. It was all mushy, the packages,
Uh-huh.
and there was one bottle of Daegu red wine in this one bag of mail, and it had a little note on the side of it, Mrs. J.J. Camito. So I knew who it went to. And he got it without somebody else drinking it.
Yeah, always a good thing. Always a good thing. So, okay.
I had a knife made up on Luzon, which got the leather was urine cured,
Okay.
and that's what cured it. But it's a pretty thing. And I got another one down on Mindanao, which was one of the Moro Chris. Whether you've seen one of them or not, they're a curved blade on it and sharp on both sides.
Yeah.
I got it out the trunk of the car.
So, okay. So, what were the Philippines like? I mean, what was your impression?
The Filipinos were friendly, and the Moros down on Mindanao were the little fighting ones. That's the one that had the Moro Chris,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't go out in the jungles. We left that for them.
Okay.
They took care of the things out there. We had, we kind of lifted a bulldozer when we left Mindoro to go down to Mindanao. And when we got down there, we needed it to work on the airfield. The bulldozer belonged to the Seabees.
Okay.
Did belong to the Seabees.
Did. It's liberated, right?
Yeah, we liberated it.
Okay. What type of airfields were you operating from? Were you improvised or were they captured?
They improvised.
Improvised.
Yeah.
So, pure steel planking and
It, it graded down,
okay. So, but
like you say.
everything is pretty much.
It wasn't any macadam field, huh?
Yeah, but everything is pretty much put up when you guys got there.
Right.
So, what were the conditions like for the troops?
Oh, the first 3 days on Luzon, we were on short rations. We had K ration for breakfast, and they were moldy. We carried them from Cherry Point, and at noontime, we got a cup of coffee, and the evening meal was one helping of sea rations.
Okay.
And we weren't faring too well until one of our officers spotted the Army food dump on the beach, and after that we ate pretty good. But like I said, in that explanation there, right, there was one of our boys hijacked a whole load of pilchards, which was canned fish. Terrible. The mess officer, we spiked them, then we had to eat them. So every time we smell fish, why we'd cook behind our own tents, but we had some 5-in-1 rations.
Okay. Can you explain what's in a K ration?
K rations were, Lord, yeah, it had been so long. It had a bar of chocolate and usually a can of kind of potted meat. It wasn't too great.
Okay. So it's basically the stuff you live on in the field.
Yeah.
It is all canned.
Now, the worst meats we had to eat while we was over there was when we left out of, we went on Emeroo, and that was an Australian island, and I surveyed a pair of shoes there, and the shoes had steel heel plates. Well, we were aboard a Liberty ship for 42 days after that, and I had to walk flat-footed. It just slide all over the place. The meat, the main meat was Australian pork sausage. Now, if you can imagine sausage without seasoning, why, you got it. That's how it was. And our cooks did the best they could to camouflage it with, they fry it, they'd fry it with tomatoes, they'd cook it with pineapple, and they tried to help it along, but it was still just plain old flat tasting sausage.
So you didn't enjoy Australian rations?
No, I didn't enjoy that. I never did go down to Australia.
Okay. So
according to the map, why I was saying why Philippines weren't too far from Australia.
Okay. All right. So what were your living conditions like? Were it tents or were you?
We had on we lived in tents, and our it was on Emeroo where we had a problem. We lived in a big storage tent, had our cots in there. Now, Emeroo had a lot of rats on the island and pythons. I think pythons kind of kept the rat population down a little bit.
Probably.
But you'd hear the rats running upside of the tent, and then they sound like they're playing games at night, and then they slide down the other side. But in the morning, we did not allow anyone to bring any food into the tents. We swept the tent down before bedtime, and everybody tucked their mosquito nets in real careful, and so that the rats couldn't get in and nibble in. But there was we thought it was a Jap for a while, coming into a tent. He'd come in, lift up a guy's mosquito net, and scream, and then take off. Well, that made a bunch of nervous people around there. It sounded like a war in the evening times when they do that. But our CO took all the ammunition away from us so that we couldn't shoot somebody going to the head. But they finally caught him. It was an Australian going off his rocker. But he still, yeah. We had one, he was Jewish boy with us. He didn't sleep at night. He would sleep before lights out, and he'd stay up all night. He lost a lot of sleep there. But the last night before we left Demereux, there was a storm, and the Liberty ship that we were on threw it up on the rocks and punched a hole in the bottom of it. CO said, "Get aboard, we're going anyway." We went down to what they call Manus Harbor. It was the largest natural harbor out in the South Pacific, and it had a floating dry dock there.
Okay.
And that's where we spent New Year's in 44 and 45. It had a Red Cross representative. He was going to get each man a case of beer. The CO said no. He didn't allow that. So they got into the sick bay alcohol, some of them did. And they were diving off the bow of the ship and climbing back up the anchor chain. Well, they find their ways of entertaining.
Okay. So from the New Year's '44 to the end of the war, what did you end up doing?
What now?
What did you end up doing at the end of World War II? What was your?
Well, I was, like I say, I was in a post office, and I was also a naval censor.
Okay.
Now, some of the boys thought they could bring the letters to me and that they could say whatever they please, but so I didn't say anything to them. I took a razor blade and cut it all away. I made it look like a jigsaw puzzle. Sent it on. Then when they got the reply, why they wondered what in the world did that happen to their letters.
Okay.
Well, they made me a censor, primarily to take care of packages. You were allowed to send a lot of stuff on it. They also they were only allowed $1,000 in money orders at a time. Now, after the payday, we hadn't been paid for about 6 months. We got a token pay on Emerald, $15, and so we buy soap and stuff. But we just didn't have any. When they did get paid, why, there's guys that were really hitting the poker games. A guy get aboard and send $1,000 home about every other day.
Huh. So, when did you find out that the war was over?
Oh, I was back to the stateside when the war was over.
Okay.
Yeah, I was back to, yeah, I came home, I was home on leave in July,
Uh-huh.
and I reported to Cherry Point, North Carolina
Uh-huh.
for reassignment, and I was down there when the war ended.
Okay.
And when the war ended, why they closed the base for 2 days. They wouldn't allow anybody off the base.
Really?
No, they knew that New Bern would get torn up. So they treated the Marines the way they treated them. Well, they weren't going to have much of a town left. Yeah, got pretty well acquainted down there. And then, when the Korean War come along,
Uh-huh.
I got recalled to active duty.
Okay. What did you do in between? What happened between Korea, World War II and Korea?
Oh, well, I come back to Lebanon, and I went to work for the National Cash Register Company,
Okay.
and I was still with the reserve, but I was a reserve in name only. I wasn't attending any meetings or anything when I got called back to active duty.
Okay.
And my job foreman at the NCR, he was even a former Marine.
Okay.
And he didn't see why I didn't send my papers back and drop out of the reserve instead of reporting for active duty.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't sign up to drop out first time they needed me.
Okay.
But I reported to Cherry Point, North Carolina. And of course, they had my orders all cut to go in the metal shop down there.
Okay.
Well, after school, I never worked in a metal shop. So I went into the wing post office, asked them how they was fixed. Oh, so we're leaving all of our NCOs by next month. Well, said I worked post office when I was overseas, and so I got into charge of the distribution, public mail and stuff. We had a circumstance while I was there. I got the officers would not sign for registered mail going down to Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Where they would have maneuvers.
Uh-huh.
So I set up a mail guard. I made one trip to Puerto Rico myself, find out what was needed. And mosquito nets were needed very bad on that trip. So I stood all night in the shower down at Santucci and still got bit by mosquitoes.
Huh.
With the water running in it. Then, well, I was on that tour where I come home at Christmas time in Christmas of '51 to pick up my wife to take her back down there, wife and boy.
Uh-huh.
And so I had a 47 Pontiac convertible that we went to North Carolina in.
Okay.
And I got back, I'd been held over a couple of days to witness one of the court martial. So that threw my housing out of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I got back, my housing had been given away. So this woman in housing, she said, well, why don't you and your wife come out and stay with me? Said, they're just my little girl and I, and we got plenty of room. So we took her up on it. And then she showed us around to what housing was going to be available. And we picked out the house that we wanted to stay in down there, the Quonset hut. that was something else too. They had, the people on the other end, they played loud music a lot of times. But I found out I had one light in one of the bedrooms, fluorescent. If I turned that on, it would put a lot of static in there. So that soon solved that problem. I got this woman that worked in housing. Her brother-in-law had 3 tobacco farms up around Kinston. So I got acquainted with how tobacco grows, and clear from the time it's put in the ground until they carry it to the warehouse. Now, I never went into a cigarette making place, but saw how they raise this stuff.
Yeah. All right. So, you went through Korea.
No, I didn't go to Korea.
Well, but you served during
Yeah, I served in
conflict.
Korea.
And you were through World War II. So, what did you do after that?
I come back to the National Cash Register Company again.
Okay.
And I worked there. I retired in '77.
Okay.
There. At the same time that I worked for the cash, I was the first sergeant out at the Dayton Reserve Unit. I've been associated with the Marine Corps about all my life.
Okay.
What I haven't been, what my boy has.
Okay. So, how did the Marine Corps, being in the Marines, how did it help you after you were out and you were pursuing civilian
Well,
jobs and stuff like that? Interest.
It didn't affect my job, except when I would sign out of the department, and I'd put down in the afternoon, maybe I put down 1400. I'd leave in the department, and my job group leader, he didn't know what that was all about. I had some fun with it. And then there was one time that I even went to work with my Marine clothes on. I stayed with a friend of mine and borrowed a white shirt off of him, and so I didn't have to wear my service shirt. As I got into the building, I went up in the cloakroom and took my jacket, my blouse off, hung it up. Then I got this when I got snowed in up in Dayton one time when that happened.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything you want to tell future generations about your service and how you see things?
Well, future generations, it's entirely different now, and they don't even allow you a service number to indicate whether whether you enlisted or whether you drafted. Of course, there's no draft anymore. Mm-hmm. But now it's all Social Security number, and I strongly object to that, because the next serial number can belong to a draft dodger. Might be Clinton. I don't know.
Anything else you want to add? Any other interesting stories that you have?
Well, we had, I had one gunny sergeant at, when we had a captain who was rather large, and he sent him out to supply to get him a larger cartridge belt. Well, he went on out to the garage and got a strap off a 6-by and brought it back into it. Yeah, this particular gunny was he operated a machine gun over in Korea. And there's another thing. One of the staff NCOs talked to his brother into joining the reserve unit there in Dayton.
Yeah.
Just the day before they got activated for, he and his brother both went over to Korea.
All right. That's all I've got, unless you have anything more.
Yeah, I believe that'll be enough.
All right.
I do have a niece now, or grandniece, who's been over to Iraq and back, and she's doing real well.
And it's pretty impressive what they did. I mean,
Yeah.
they had a pretty far way to go, and they did it really quickly.
Yeah, well, she was with supply. They attached her to a hospital unit.
Okay.
And said she'd driving a Humvee and a 7-ton truck while she was over there.
Huh.
But she enjoyed that. And while she was still here in the States, before they shipped her over, why she was stationed at Camp Lejeune, and when she come home, why she worked with the recruiter in Lebanon, and then that didn't count against her leave time.
Huh. Okay.
She enjoyed that.
All right. So I guess that's it. So thank you for coming down and sharing your story with us today.
You're quite welcome.